They mocked Earth's fleet. Then one ship turned laughter into screams. The crystal spires of the Galactic Assembly stretched toward the artificial stars embedded in the station's dome ceiling. Ambassador Satoru Miyazaki walked through corridors filled with beings that defied human imagination. The Valeri floated past in their biomechanical suits, their tentacles controlling dozens of holographic displays simultaneously. Crystalline Zephyrite clicked across the floor on legs that resembled living gemstones. The massive Corathon delegates lumbered by, their rocky hides scraping against the specially reinforced walls. Satoru had attended 17 intergalactic summits in his 4 years as Earth's representative, but today felt different. The emergency session had been called after reports of the Devourers reached the core worlds, an ancient machine race that consumed entire civilizations, converting biological matter into fuel for their endless expansion across the galaxy. The assembly hall fell silent as Satoru entered. 2,000 delegates from 47 species turned to watch the human take his assigned seat. The Earth delegation consisted of exactly one person, sitting at a table barely large enough for his briefcase. Around him, species delegations filled entire sections with hundreds of representatives. High Chancellor Thane Vex, a towering Corathan whose voice could shatter glass, began the session. The Devourer threat has reached critical mass. They have consumed the Outer Rim colonies and show no signs of slowing. We must unite our fleets immediately. The Vellery Warmaster, Zix-9, raised 4 tentacles. The hegemony offers 2,000 battleships, each carrying 500 assault pods. Our bioweapons will dissolve Devourer hulls within minutes. Murmurs of approval rippled through the hall. The Zephyrite Empress stepped forward, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into dancing rainbows. The Crystal Dominion pledges 1,500 dreadnoughts. Our quantum torpedoes can phase through any armor. One by one, the major powers announced their contributions. The Insectoid Hive Collective buzzed about, deploying 3,000 swarm fighters. The energy beings of Plasma Federation promised 1,000 Star Destroyers. Each announcement brought cheers and displays of holographic fleet formations. Finally, Chancellor Thane Vex's massive head turned toward the human section. And what does Earth contribute to our grand alliance? Satoru stood slowly, his modest height making him nearly invisible among the towering aliens. Earth pledges our complete support. We will deploy our entire deep space fleet. Excellent, Thane Vex rumbled. How many vessels will humanity provide? Satoru's voice carried clearly across the silent chamber. 43 ships. The silence stretched for exactly 3 seconds. Then someone started laughing. The sound built like an avalanche as species after species joined in. The Valeri's biomechanical suits chittered with amusement. The Zephyrite chimed like wind through crystal caves. Even the usually stoic Corathons produced grinding sounds that passed for laughter among their kind. Warmaster Zix-9 wiped moisture from what might have been eyes with several tentacles. Did the humans say 43? Perhaps our translators malfunction. 43 combat vessels, Satoru confirmed calmly. This brought fresh waves of laughter. The Hive Collective's queen buzzed so rapidly her translator couldn't keep up. A delegate from the Plasma Federation flickered between colors so quickly the lights hurt to look at. My friend, Chancellor Thane Vex said, his tone becoming almost parental. We are discussing a war fleet, not a merchant convoy. Surely Earth has more than 43 warships? We have exactly 43 ships capable of deep space combat operations, Satoru replied. Each vessel carries a crew of approximately 200. A Zephyrite delegate chimed up. 200? Our scout ships carry crews of 8,000. The laughter became deafening. Satoru waited patiently for it to subside, his expression never changing. He had expected this reaction. Earth's entire space fleet was smaller than most alien patrol squadrons. Warmaster Zix-9 gestured with multiple appendages. Perhaps the humans should focus on evacuation duties instead. Leave the fighting to those with actual military capability. We understand military capability quite well, Satoru said quietly. Do you? Chancellor Thane Vex leaned forward, his massive form casting a shadow over the human delegate. The Korathan Empire has fought wars across the galaxy for 12,000 years. We know what real combat requires. Experience doesn't always equal wisdom, Satoru replied. More laughter echoed through the chamber. A delegate from the Plasma Federation flickered bright orange with amusement. Ambassador Miyazaki, your courage is admirable, but the Devourer's field ship's kilometers in length. They have weapons that can crack planets. What can 43 small vessels accomplish against such power? Satoru looked around the hall at the thousands of alien faces. Some were still laughing. Others watched him with what seemed like pity. A few looked bored, as if he was wasting their time. Our ships may be small in number, Satoru said, but I wouldn't underestimate them. Chancellor Thane Vex slapped one massive hand against his stone podium, creating a sound like thunder. Underestimate? Ambassador, I don't think you comprehend what you're facing. The Devourers will have tens of thousands of ships, each one larger than your entire fleet combined. Numbers aren't everything, Satoru said. In space warfare, numbers are almost everything, War Master Zix9 clicked. Unless you possess some secret weapon you haven't mentioned. Satoru was quiet for a moment. Every human ship is a secret weapon. This brought the biggest laugh yet. Even the normally serious Karathans produced their grinding sounds of amusement. Well then, Chancellor Thane Vex said, wiping what might have been tears from his rocky features. We'll be sure to give your secret weapons a safe position far from the main battle. Perhaps you can escort refugee ships. That would be very helpful. The meeting continued for 3 more hours, but Satoru barely listened to the rest. The aliens made their battle plans, divided up sectors, and assigned roles. Earth was given exactly what Thane Vex had sarcastically suggested, escort duty for civilian vessels, far from any real fighting. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, several stopped by Satoru's table. Most wanted to pat him on the shoulder and tell him how brave his species was for trying to help. Don't worry, little human, War Master Zix9 said as he prepared to leave. This war will be finished before your tiny fleet even reaches the combat zone. The real warriors will handle the Devourers. Satoru sat alone in the assembly hall after everyone else had gone. The lights dimmed automatically, and the artificial stars in the ceiling began their slow rotation. He activated his quantum communicator and sent a coded message back to Earth. Proceed with Operation Prometheus. Full authorization granted. The galaxy was about to learn something new about humans. Captain Phoenix Drake stood in the command center of the ESV Defiance, watching the tactical displays that showed the positions of Allied fleets throughout the sector. Space around them buzzed with activity as thousands of ships from dozens of worlds prepared for the largest military operation in galactic history. The Korathon dreadnoughts moved through space like floating mountains, their rocky hulls bristling with plasma cannons. The Valeri bioships pulsed with organic rhythms, their living weapons already extending from hull mouths. The Zephyrite crystal ships refracted starlight into deadly focus beams. And then there were the human ships. 43 vessels hung at the edge of the massive fleet formation, looking small and unremarkable next to the exotic alien designs. The Defiance was Earth's largest ship, but it would fit comfortably inside the cargo bay of most alien cruisers. Her hull was smooth gray composite with simple geometric lines, no glowing crystals, no organic curves, no floating sections. Just practical human engineering. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Raven Torres called from her position at the tactical station. We're receiving more communications from the alien fleets. Phoenix turned from the viewing screen. Raven was young for her rank, maybe 28, with short dark hair and intense brown eyes. She'd been with his crew for 2 years and had proven herself during the border conflicts. What kind of communications? Phoenix asked. The usual mockery, Raven replied with a slight smile. The Zephyrite battle cluster just asked if we need navigation assistance to find the refugee convoy. Chief Engineer Dante Volkov looked up from his console. He was a stocky man with graying hair and calloused hands that were always busy either working controls or fixing something. Let them laugh. They haven't seen what these ships can really do. Communications Officer Nova Chen turned in her chair. She was tall and athletic with blonde hair pulled back in a regulation bun. Her calm demeanor never seemed to change, even in crisis situations. "Captain, the Valerie Fleet Commander is asking if we need technical assistance. Says their bioengineers would be happy to help upgrade our primitive systems." Phoenix felt his jaw tighten, but kept his voice steady. "Tell them we appreciate the offer, but we're quite satisfied with our equipment." "Yes, sir," Nova replied, turning back to her console. Phoenix walked to the tactical display in the center of the command deck. The holographic projection showed all ships in the area. The alien vessels appeared as different colored markers: blue for Corathan, green for Valerie, white for Zephyrite, and so on. The human ships showed up as small red dots scattered around the periphery. "They think we're a joke," Raven said quietly, joining him at the display. "Let them think that," Phoenix replied. "It'll make things easier later." Dante moved to stand beside them. "Captain, all ships are reporting ready status. The new weapon systems are online, and the targeting computers are calibrated." "What about the special ammunition?" Phoenix asked. "Loaded and ready," Dante said with satisfaction. "Every ship has a full complement of the new rounds. The mass drivers are perfectly calibrated." Phoenix nodded. The aliens had no idea what human ships really carried. While other species had focused on energy weapons, plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, bioacids, humans had taken a different approach. Sometimes the oldest solutions were the best solutions. "Captain," Nova said from her station, "Chancellor Thane Vex is broadcasting to all ships. He's giving a pre-battle speech." "Put it on speakers," Phoenix ordered. The command deck filled with the Chancellor's booming voice translated into English. "Warriors of the galaxy, we face our greatest challenge. The Devourers bring weapons we have never encountered. Their ships are larger than our mightiest dreadnoughts, but we are united. Together, we cannot be defeated." Phoenix could hear cheering from other ships across the communication channels. The aliens were working themselves up for the fight ahead. "Of course," Chancellor Thane Vex continued. "Some of our allies are smaller than others. But every contribution matters, no matter how insignificant. Even our human friends with their 43 little ships will serve by keeping our refugees safe." More laughter came through the speakers. Phoenix could hear alien voices making jokes in languages the translator couldn't handle. "Turn it off," Phoenix said. The command deck became quiet again. Phoenix looked at his crew. Raven's face was flushed with anger. Dante was shaking his head. Nova looked like she wanted to say something, but was holding back. "Captain," Raven said, "permission to speak freely." "Always," Phoenix replied. "I'm getting tired of being treated like children. We've trained for this for 3 years. We know what we're doing." "They'll learn," Phoenix said calmly. "When?" Dante asked. "After they get themselves slaughtered because they think they're invincible?" Phoenix turned back to the viewing screen. In the distance, he could see more ships arriving through hyperspace jumps. The Allied fleet was growing larger by the hour. Soon they would move toward the Kepler sector, where intelligence reports indicated the Devourers were massing their forces. "Dante, show me the weapon status again," Phoenix said. Dante pressed controls on his console. New information appeared on the tactical display. Each human ship showed green lights across all systems. "Every ship has 8 mass driver batteries," Dante said. "Each battery can fire solid projectiles at 20% of light speed. We have tungsten penetrators, explosive rounds, and the new adaptive rounds that Professor Yamamoto designed." "Ammunition count?" Phoenix asked. "Each ship carries 3,000 rounds per battery. That's 24,000 shots per ship." Nova whistled softly. "Over 1 million rounds total for the fleet." "And the aliens don't know about any of this," Raven added. Phoenix smiled for the first time that day. "They think energy weapons are the future of space combat. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, bioacids, very advanced, very powerful." "But they all work the same way," Dante said, understanding where Phoenix was going. "They're all forms of energy that can be deflected by shields." "Exactly," Phoenix replied. Every alien species in the galaxy uses the same basic defensive technology. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons, but not solid objects moving at relativistic speeds. A chunk of tungsten traveling at 20% of light speed doesn't care about energy shields, Raven said with growing excitement. It just keeps going until it hits something solid. Nova turned from her console. Captain, we're getting a priority message from Earth Command. Put it through, Phoenix ordered. Ambassador Miyazaki's voice filled the command deck, transmitted across hundreds of light years. All human vessels, this is command. You have full authorization to engage enemy forces as you see fit. Do not let anyone tell you what you can and cannot do. Show them what human engineering can accomplish. The message ended. Phoenix looked around at his crew. They were all smiling now. You heard the ambassador, Phoenix said. We have our orders. What about Chancellor Thane Vex's instructions to guard the refugee ships? Raven asked. Phoenix walked back to his captain's chair and settled into it. Through the viewing screen, he could see alien ships beginning to move into jump formation. They were preparing to enter hyperspace, heading for a battle that would determine the fate of multiple civilizations. Chancellor Thane Vex is not in command of human ships, Phoenix said. I am. Dante laughed. The aliens are going to be very surprised. Yes, they are, Phoenix agreed. Nova, send a message to all human ships. Tell them to prepare for combat operations. We're going to show the galaxy what 43 ships can do when they're built by humans. Message sent, Captain, Nova replied. Phoenix leaned back in his chair and watched the alien fleet begin its jump sequence. Soon, they would all enter hyperspace together. The Devourers were waiting at Kepler, confident in their superior numbers and ancient technology. They had no idea what was coming for them. Neither did the aliens who had spent the day laughing at the tiny human fleet. But they were all about to learn something important about the species from the small blue world at the galaxy's edge. Humans had been fighting wars for millennia before they ever reached the stars, and they had gotten very, very good at it. The alarms on the ESV Defiance started screaming at exactly 0847 hours ship time. Captain Phoenix Drake was in his ready room, reviewing tactical reports and drinking coffee when the sound sent him racing to the command deck. He arrived just as Lieutenant Commander Raven Torres was pulling up the sensor displays. Report, Phoenix said, sliding into his captain's chair. Long-range sensors are detecting massive hyperspace signatures, Raven said, her fingers flying across the controls. Distance approximately 60,000 kilometers and closing fast. On the main viewing screen, space looked deceptively peaceful. The Allied fleet hung in formation like a collection of exotic sculptures. The Corathan dreadnoughts maintained their positions like floating fortresses. The Valeri bioships pulsed with organic rhythms. The Zephyrite crystal ships glowed with internal light. Then space began to tear apart. The first Devourer ship emerged from hyperspace like a blade cutting through reality itself. It was enormous, easily 5 kilometers long with a hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The ship's surface was covered with geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Red energy crackled along weapon arrays that ran the entire length of the vessel. More ships followed, dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. They kept materializing until space was filled with Devourer vessels, each one larger than the biggest ship in the Allied fleet. Some of the Devourer dreadnoughts were so massive they generated their own gravitational fields. Final count, Raven said, her voice tight with tension. 8,743 enemy vessels. Nova Chen looked up from her communication station. I'm getting emergency broadcasts from all Allied ships. Chancellor Thane Vex is ordering battle stations. Phoenix watched the tactical display update with new information. The Devourer fleet arranged itself in perfect geometric formations. Their ships moved with mechanical precision, like components of a vast machine. There was something terrifying about how organized and purposeful they appeared. Captain, Dante Volkov called from his engineering station. I'm reading energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. These ships are generating more power than some small stars. The Allied fleet began to move. Chancellor Thane Vex's flagship, a massive Corathan dreadnought called the Stone Fist, led the advance. Behind it came 1,200 Corathan warships, their rocky hulls bristling with plasma cannons. The Vellery bioships formed their own attack wing, their living weapons extending like deadly flowers. The Zephyrite crystal vessels spread out in attack formations, light building within their transparent hulls. "All ships," Chancellor Thane Vex's voice boomed over the communication channels. "Attack formation Omega-7. Engage the enemy at maximum range with all weapons." Phoenix watched as the Allied fleet opened fire. Thousands of energy beams lanced across space. Plasma bolts bright as small suns streamed toward the Devourer ships. Quantum torpedoes that could phase through solid matter struck the enemy hulls. Bioacids capable of dissolving metal on contact splashed against Devourer armor. For a moment, it looked like the attack might be working. The space between the two fleets filled with explosions and flashing lights. Phoenix found himself hoping that maybe the aliens were right. Maybe their superior numbers would be enough. Then the light faded and the Devourer ships hung in space completely untouched. "Impossible," Raven breathed. The enemy vessels showed no damage whatsoever. Their hulls didn't have even a scorch mark from the massive energy barrage. It was as if the alien weapons had struck nothing at all. "Captain," Nova said, her voice shaking slightly, "Chancellor Thane Vex is demanding damage reports from all ships." "What are the Devourers doing?" Phoenix asked. Raven checked her sensors. "They're not moving, not firing back. It's like they're waiting for something." The Allied fleet fired again, this time concentrating all firepower on a single Devourer cruiser. Hundreds of energy weapons struck the same target simultaneously. The explosion was so bright it overloaded the viewing screen's filters. When the light cleared, the Devourer ship was still there, completely undamaged. "Their shields are deflecting everything," Dante said in amazement. "I've never seen defensive systems this advanced." That was when the Devourers decided to respond. The enemy weapons were unlike anything the Allies had encountered. Instead of bright energy beams, the Devourer ships fired what looked like streams of liquid darkness. The dark energy moved slowly compared to conventional weapons, but when it struck Allied ships, the results were devastating. The first stream hit a Zephyrite battlecruiser. The crystal ship simply vanished, converted to component atoms in a fraction of a second. The second stream took out an entire formation of Vellery bioships, their living hulls screaming as they died. The third punched through a Corathan dreadnought's shields and armor like they were made of paper. "Dear God," Phoenix whispered. The slaughter continued. Streams of dark energy flowed through space like death itself, destroying everything they touched. Allied ships that had seemed invincible just minutes before were being torn apart. The careful formations broke down as vessels tried to escape the enemy fire. "Captain," Nova reported urgently, "Chancellor Thane Vex is ordering a general retreat." "Already?" Dante asked in disbelief. On the tactical display, Phoenix could see Allied ships breaking formation and fleeing. The proud Corathan fleet was scattering like leaves in a storm. The Vellery bioships were pulling back, their bioluminescent hulls dimming with fear. Even the brave Zephyrite warriors were retreating, their crystal formations breaking apart. "Captain," Raven said urgently, "the Devourers are changing course. They're moving toward the civilian evacuation zone." Phoenix looked at the display. Behind the main battle area, hundreds of refugee ships were trying to escape the Kepler system. They carried millions of civilians from the outer colonies' families, children, elderly beings who had nowhere else to go. The ships moved slowly, overloaded with desperate refugees. The Devourer fleet was turning toward them like predators sensing wounded prey. "Chancellor Thane Vex isn't moving to intercept," Nova said. "All Allied ships are still retreating." Phoenix stared at the tactical display. The mathematics were simple and terrible. The Devourers would reach the civilian ships in less than 30 minutes. The Allied fleet was running in the opposite direction. There was no one left to stop the massacre except for 43 human ships that everyone had been laughing at just hours ago. "Captain," Raven said quietly, "we could reach the evacuation zone before the Devourers do." "Our orders are to guard the supply depot," Dante pointed out. Phoenix looked around the command deck at his crew. Raven was watching him with intense brown eyes. Dante had stopped working and was waiting for orders. Nova had turned her chair to face him, her calm expression unchanged but her hands gripping the armrests. Nova, Phoenix said, open a channel to all human ships. Channel open, Captain. Phoenix stood up from his chair. All human vessels, this is Captain Drake. You can see what's happening out there. The Allied fleet is retreating. The enemy is moving towards civilian targets. We have a choice to make. He paused, looking out at the stars where his fellow humans waited for orders. We can follow our assigned mission and guard empty supply depots while millions of innocent beings die. Or we can do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. We can stand up and fight. The communication channel crackled with responses. Other human captains were requesting orders, ready to follow his lead. All ships, Phoenix said. This is Captain Drake. We are moving to intercept the enemy fleet. Our mission is to protect the civilian evacuation. Any ship that wants to withdraw is free to do so. No one will question that decision. Phoenix waited. Not a single human ship moved away from the formation. Very well, Phoenix said. All ships, follow the Defiance. Let's show these devourers what happens when they threaten innocent people. The 43 human ships turned toward the massive enemy fleet. They looked like minnows swimming toward a school of sharks. Behind them, the Allied fleet continued its retreat. Ahead of them, nearly 9,000 Devourer warships waited. Captain, Dante said as they accelerated toward the enemy, the aliens think we're insane. Maybe we are, Phoenix replied, but insanity has worked for humans before. What's the plan? Raven asked. Phoenix smiled grimly. We're going to find out if our secret weapons are as good as we think they are. The Defiance and her 42 sister ships raced across empty space toward an enemy that had just proven they were unstoppable. But humans had a long history of fighting impossible battles. And sometimes, just sometimes, they won. The 43 human ships moved through space like hunters approaching a vast herd of prey. Captain Phoenix Drake stood on the command deck of the ESV Defiance, watching the massive Devourer fleet grow larger on the main viewing screen. Each enemy ship was at least 10 times bigger than his vessel, and there were nearly 9,000 of them. Range to target? Phoenix asked. 40,000 kilometers in closing, Lieutenant Commander Raven Torres replied from her tactical station. The Devourers have noticed us. They're turning some of their ships in our direction. Good, Phoenix said. I want their attention. Chief Engineer Dante Volkov looked up from his console. Captain, all human ships are reporting weapons ready. Mass driver batteries are charged and loaded with tungsten penetrators. What about our adaptive rounds? Phoenix asked. Loaded and ready in secondary magazines, Dante confirmed. Every ship has the new variable density projectiles that Professor Yamamoto's team designed. Nova Chen turned from her communication station. Captain, I'm getting calls from the retreating Allied ships. Chancellor Thane Vex is demanding to know what we're doing. Tell him we're following our conscience, Phoenix replied. Sir, he's ordering us to return to formation immediately. Phoenix looked at the tactical display. The Allied fleet was still fleeing, leaving a trail of debris from their destroyed ships. Behind them, Devourer vessels continued their methodical pursuit toward the civilian evacuation zone. Nova, open a channel to Chancellor Thane Vex, Phoenix said. The alien commander's angry voice filled the command deck. Captain Drake, you will return to your assigned position immediately. This is madness. Chancellor, Phoenix said calmly, those are civilian ships, families with children. We can't just abandon them. Your tiny ships cannot stop the Devourers. You will only get yourselves killed. Maybe, Phoenix agreed, but we're going to try anyway. He nodded to Nova, who cut the communication. The command deck became quiet except for the hum of the ship's engines and the soft beeping of sensor arrays. 30,000 kilometers to target, Raven reported. The Devourers are launching those dark energy weapons at us. Phoenix could see them on the viewing screen, streams of liquid darkness moving toward the human fleet. They looked slow, but he knew they had destroyed dozens of Allied ships just minutes before. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Phoenix ordered. Let's see how maneuverable these big Devourer ships really are. The human vessels scattered like a school of fish. The Defiance rolled to port while other ships dove and climbed in different directions. The streams of dark energy passed harmlessly through empty space where the human formation had been seconds before. They can't track fast-moving targets very well, Raven observed. Those weapons are designed for large, slow ships. Perfect, Phoenix said. Dante, are we in range yet? Dante checked his instruments. 25,000 kilometers. We're at maximum effective range for the mass drivers. All ships, Phoenix said into his communicator. This is Defiance. Commence firing. The human fleet opened fire simultaneously. 43 ships, each carrying 8 mass driver batteries, sent a storm of tungsten projectiles screaming through space. The mass drivers used magnetic fields to accelerate chunks of metal to incredible speeds. Each projectile was only the size of a fist, but it was moving at 20% of the speed of light. The first volley struck 3 Devourer ships at once. The results were nothing like what had happened when the aliens fired their energy weapons. The tungsten projectiles punched through the Devourer hulls like bullets through tissue paper. Explosions bloomed inside the enemy ships as the metal fragments tore through critical systems. 2 Devourer cruisers exploded completely. The third began tumbling out of control, atmosphere streaming from dozens of breaches in its hull. Direct hits, Raven shouted. The shields aren't stopping us. Phoenix smiled grimly. Energy shields don't work against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. Keep firing. The human ships spread out further, making themselves harder to target while maintaining a constant barrage of mass driver fire. Each ship could fire all 8 batteries every few seconds, sending waves of deadly projectiles into the Devourer formation. The enemy fleet tried to respond, but their massive ships couldn't turn fast enough to track the agile human vessels. The streams of dark energy kept missing as the human ships danced around them like fighters against giants. Captain, Dante called out, I'm getting damage reports from across the Devourer fleet. We're punching holes in ships that the entire Allied fleet couldn't scratch. On the tactical display, Phoenix could see the battle developing. Red indicators marking damaged or destroyed Devourer ships were appearing everywhere. The enemy formation was starting to break apart as commanders tried to avoid the deadly human fire. They're trying to surround us, Raven warned. Some of their ships are moving to cut off our escape route. We're not escaping, Phoenix said. Nova, target their command ship, the big one in the center of their formation. Nova's fingers flew over her controls. Command ship identified. It's enormous, Captain. At least 60 times our size. Size doesn't matter if you can't hit what you're shooting at, Phoenix replied. All ships, concentrate fire on the Devourer flagship. Let's cut the head off the snake. 25 human ships turned their mass drivers toward the enormous Devourer command vessel. Hundreds of tungsten projectiles streamed across space in perfect coordination. The flagship tried to turn away, but it was too big and too slow. The mass driver rounds hit the massive ship like a metallic hailstorm. They punched through the hull in dozens of places, tearing apart internal structures. Secondary explosions started fires that spread through the ship's corridors. The flagship is heavily damaged, Raven reported. I'm reading massive system failures across their entire vessel. Keep firing, Phoenix ordered. More human ships joined the attack on the flagship. The great Devourer vessel shuddered under the constant impacts. Pieces of its hull began to break away and drift into space. Captain, Nova said urgently, the flagship is transmitting some kind of signal. All the other Devourer ships are responding. Phoenix looked at the tactical display. The enemy fleet was changing formation, pulling back from the human ships. For the first time since the battle began, the Devourers looked uncertain. They're retreating, Dante said in amazement. No, Phoenix corrected, watching the enemy movements carefully. They're regrouping. We hurt them, but we haven't beaten them yet. The Devourer fleet formed a new battle line, keeping their distance from the human ships. They had learned to respect the deadly mass driver fire, but they still had overwhelming numbers. Captain, Raven said, I count 73 enemy ships destroyed or disabled, but that still leaves over 8,000 functional vessels. Phoenix nodded. The human attack had been successful, but the odds were still impossible. His 43 ships couldn't fight 8,000 enemies forever, no matter how effective their weapons were. Sir, Nova said, I'm getting a communication from the Devourer flagship. Put it through, Phoenix ordered. A harsh, mechanical voice filled the command deck. The translation software struggled with the alien language, making the words sound choppy and distorted. Human vessels. You fight with unexpected capability. Your weapons are not anticipated. We offer terms. Surrender now and your termination will be swift. Phoenix looked around at his crew. Raven was watching him with determined eyes. Dante had his hands on the weapon controls, ready to keep fighting. Nova waited calmly for his response. Tell them, Phoenix said clearly, that humans don't surrender to bullies. Nova relayed the message. The Devourer response was immediate. Every enemy ship began moving forward at once, abandoning their cautious approach. They were coming for a final assault, ready to overwhelm the small human fleet through sheer numbers. All ships, Phoenix said into his communicator, they're coming at us with everything they have. This is what we train for. Show them what humans can do when we're backed into a corner. The 43 human ships formed a tight defensive formation as 8,000 Devourer vessels charged toward them. The final battle was about to begin. But as Phoenix watched his crew prepare for the fight of their lives, he noticed something on the tactical display that made him smile. In the distance, moving slowly but steadily toward the battle, dozens of new contacts were appearing. The Allied fleet had stopped retreating. Chancellor Thane Vex and his ships were coming back to join the fight. The humans had bought them the time they needed to regroup, and now the real battle could begin. The final battle lasted 8 hours. When it was over, space around the Kepler system was filled with the wreckage of Devourer ships. Captain Phoenix Drake stood on the command deck of the ESV Defiance, looking at the tactical display that showed the results of the engagement. 8,743 Devourer vessels had entered the system. Now only scattered debris drifted where their ancient fleet had been. The few enemy ships that survived the battle were fleeing toward the edge of the system, their hulls cracked and leaking atmosphere into space. Final damage report, Phoenix said to Lieutenant Commander Raven Torres. Raven checked her console. Of the 43 human ships, we lost none. 7 vessels have minor hull damage. The ESV Prometheus took a direct hit from a dark energy stream, but her crew managed to keep fighting. Total human casualties, 18 wounded, 0 dead. Phoenix nodded, though he felt exhausted in his bones. The last 8 hours had been the most intense combat of his life. When Chancellor Thane Vex's fleet had returned to join the battle, everything had changed. The aliens had seen what human weapons could do to Devourer ships, and they had adapted their tactics accordingly. What about the Allied fleet? Phoenix asked. Heavy losses, Raven replied sadly. The Corathans lost over 60% of their ships in the initial attack. The Valeri Bio fleet is down to 30% operational capacity. The Zephyrite, she paused, checking her readings again. The Crystal Dominion lost 87% of their vessels. Phoenix felt the weight of those numbers. Thousands of brave beings had died in those first terrible minutes when the Devourers had opened fire. All because the galaxy's greatest military minds had underestimated an enemy that turned their own weapons against them. But they came back, Chief Engineer Dante Volkov said quietly. When Chancellor Thane Vex saw what our mass drivers could do, he brought the entire fleet back into the fight. They learned, Communications Officer Nova Chen added. Once they realized the Devourer's shields couldn't stop solid projectiles, they modified their tactics. Phoenix remembered the moment when everything had changed. After watching the human ships tear holes in supposedly invincible Devourer hulls, the Allied commanders had done something remarkable. They had swallowed their pride and asked for help. Chancellor Thane Vex's voice had crackled over the communication channels. Captain Drake, this is Chancellor Thane Vex. We need to know how your weapons work. The next few hours had been a frantic exchange of technical information. Human engineers had explained mass driver technology to alien scientists who had never considered using kinetic weapons in space combat. The aliens, in turn, had shown the humans how to enhance their targeting systems with quantum calculations and bio-neural processing. The result had been devastating for the Devourers. The combined fleet had attacked with a mixture of energy weapons used for distraction and guidance, while human mass drivers and hastily modified alien kinetic weapons had done the real damage. The Devourers, caught between tactics they understood and weapons that bypassed their defenses entirely, had been systematically destroyed. "Captain," Nova said, "Ambassador Miyazaki is requesting a communication from Earth Command." "Put him through," Phoenix said. Ambassador Satoru. Miyazaki's tired but smiling face appeared on the main viewing screen. Behind him, Phoenix could see the crystal spires of the Galactic Assembly Station. "Captain Drake," Miyazaki said, "I've been getting reports from across the galaxy. What you and your crews accomplished out there, it's changed everything." Phoenix looked around at his crew. They all showed the exhaustion of the long battle, but their eyes were bright with the knowledge of what they had achieved. "We just did our job, Ambassador," Phoenix said. "You did far more than that," Miyazaki replied. "You proved that cooperation between species isn't just possible, it's essential. The aliens are calling it the human lesson." "What lesson is that?" Raven asked. Miyazaki's expression became serious. "That sometimes the smallest voice in the room has the most important thing to say. That technology isn't about size or power, it's about solving problems. And that when civilized beings stand together, nothing can destroy them." Phoenix felt a warmth spread through his chest. The last few days had been a whirlwind of fear, determination, and desperate combat. But in the end, it hadn't been about humans proving they were better than other species. It had been about showing what was possible when different approaches combined. "There's something else," Miyazaki continued. "The Galactic Assembly has voted unanimously to offer Earth full membership. No more observer status, no more single-person delegations. Humanity will have a voice equal to any other species." The command deck became quiet. Phoenix could hear the soft hum of the ship's engines and the distant chatter of repair crews working to fix battle damage. "And," Miyazaki added with a slight smile, "Chancellor Thane Vex specifically requested that human ships be integrated into all future defensive fleets. It seems our primitive kinetic weapons are now considered essential technology." Dante laughed. "I guess 43 ships were enough after all." "Captain," Nova said, "I'm receiving messages from across the Allied fleet. They want to thank us." Phoenix nodded. "Put the main ones through." The viewing screen filled with faces from across the galaxy. Chancellor Thane Vex's rocky features looked almost humble as he spoke. "Captain Drake, the Korathan Empire owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. Your courage saved not just the civilian evacuees, but showed us all what real strength looks like." War Master Zix-9 of the Volari appeared next. His biomechanical tentacles moving in what Phoenix had learned was a gesture of deep respect. "The hegemony was wrong to mock Earth's contribution. We see now that wisdom comes in many forms. We would be honored to learn from human military philosophy." The Zephyrite Empress's crystalline form chimed with harmonious notes. "The Crystal Dominion recognizes that our greatest victory came not from our individual strengths, but from combining different approaches. This is a lesson we will carry forward for generations." One by one, the leaders of 47 different species offered their gratitude and respect. Phoenix felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had happened. A few days ago, these same beings had been laughing at Earth's tiny contribution to galactic defense. "Captain," Raven said quietly, "look at the long-range sensors." Phoenix turned to the tactical display. Throughout the Kepler system, the rescue ships were moving among the civilian evacuation vessels. Millions of refugees were being transferred to safety families, children, elderly beings from dozens of worlds who would live to see another day because 43 humanist ships had refused to abandon them. "That's what matters," Phoenix said softly. "Not the politics or the recognition. Those lives." "The galaxy is different now," Nova observed. "Everyone saw what happened here. No species will be dismissed because of size or numbers again." Phoenix nodded. The battle had been won, but more importantly, a new understanding had been born. The galaxy's greatest strength wasn't in any single species' technology or military might, it was in the diversity of approaches and perspectives that different civilizations brought to common challenges. "Ambassador," Phoenix said, turning back to the communication screen, "what happens now?" Miyazaki smiled. Now we build something better. The Assembly is already forming joint research committees to study combined military tactics. Species that have never worked together are sharing technology and ideas. The Devourers brought us together as enemies, but they've left us as something stronger. A real alliance, Phoenix said. The first true galactic civilization, Miyazaki confirmed, and humanity will be part of it from the beginning. Not as junior partners, but as equals who proved their worth when it mattered most. Phoenix looked out at the stars through the viewing screen. In the distance, he could see alien ships moving alongside human vessels, working together to clear debris and assist the wounded. The mockery and condescension of just days before had been replaced by genuine respect and partnership. "Captain," Dante said, "Earth Command is requesting our return for a full debrief and some well-deserved leave." "And after that?" Raven asked. Phoenix smiled as he watched a Korathan engineering ship carefully maneuvering to assist a damaged human vessel. The aliens who had once dismissed Earth's fleet as insignificant were now treating human ships as precious allies. "After that, we all build this new galaxy," Phoenix said, "together." As the ESV Defiance and her sister ships prepared for the journey home, Phoenix reflected on the strange turns that had brought them to this moment. Humanity had come to the stars expecting to be the smallest voice in a vast chorus. Instead, they had become the voice that helped all the others learn to sing in harmony. The universe was enormous and full of wonders beyond imagination. But it was also full of beings who, despite their differences, shared the same hopes for peace, safety, and a future for their children. That was worth fighting for. That was worth 43 ships standing against impossible odds. And in the end, that was what had made all the difference. The stars shone brightly as the human fleet turned toward home, carrying with them the knowledge that they were no longer alone in the galaxy. They were part of something larger, a community of civilizations that had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from size or power, but from the courage to stand up when others cannot, and the wisdom to know that every voice matters in the symphony of civilized life. The galaxy would remember the Battle of Kepler, but more than that, it would remember the day when 43 small ships taught the universe that heroes come in all sizes, and that hope, once ignited, can light up even the darkest corners of space. In the years that followed, the human lesson became required study at military academies across 47 worlds. Not as a tale of human superiority, but as a reminder that innovation, cooperation, and moral courage could overcome any odds. The 43 ships of Earth's deep space fleet became the foundation of the first truly integrated galactic defense force, where humans and aliens served side by side, each bringing their unique strengths to the protection of all. And in the halls of the Galactic Assembly, a small plaque was installed beside the Earth delegation's expanded seating area. It bore a simple inscription in 47 languages. They came with 43 ships and changed the galaxy forever.